Recording in
Om Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyama Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Veeryam Bhavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So I'm just muting all of you because there's a lot of disturbance. Right. So we had finished verse number 25 and we are on verse number 26. So let us chant. You can please unmute yourself. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Na buddhi bhedanaye
Na buddhi bhedanaye.
Somebody's speaker is on, please put that off. Na buddhi bhedam janayet
Na buddhi bhedam janayet.
Ajnanam karma sanginam
Ajnanam karma sanginam.
Joshayet sarva karmani
Joshayet sarva karmani.
Vidvan yukta samacharan.
Vidvan yukta samacharanam.
Okay. So we look at the words first. Na buddhi bhedam janayet Ajnanam karma sanginam Joshayet. There is a halant below the Joshayet. Sarva karmani vidvan yuktaha samacharan. And the Anvaya will be Ajnanam karma sanginam buddhi bhedam na janayet, comma vidvan yuktaha sarva karmani samacharan joshayet. So Ajnanam, that is the first word. The people who are Ajnanis, and the adjective is karma sanginam, who are bound, who are obsessed with karma. So people who are Ajnanis, who are obsessed with karma, buddhi bhedam na janayet. One should not disturb their mind. Okay, so there's a very clear instruction. Somebody who is not ready for jnanam, do not go and give him jnanam. Ajnanam karma sanginam buddhi bhedam na janayet. You should not disturb his mind. Instead, what should you do? Vidvan yuktaha, the person who is a vidvan, who is committed to dharma, sarva karmani samacharan joshayet. He should himself do karma so as to encourage others to do karma. Joshayet, encourage others to do karma. Okay, what does it mean? Ajnanam karma sanginam buddhi vedam na janayet. The vidwan, the wise man, the jnani should not create any disturbance in the understanding of the ajnanis. And who are the ajnanis? Karma sanginam, those who are attached to action and the results. Instead, the vidwan yuktaha. So yuktaha here is jnana yuktaha, who is attached, who is steady in his knowledge, should himself samacharan perform all the actions, and therefore joshayet sarva karmani, he should encourage others to do actions. It's a very important sloka in the Gita, which is often quoted by Shankaracharya. So this is one of those slokas where there seems to be a contradiction, right? Everywhere else we have been saying you should be getting away from karma and you should be focusing on jnanam, because karma leads to karma phalam, and karma phalam leads to experiences, and for the experiences you will have to be reborn again. So we have always been saying that karma is the cause of rebirth, and now here suddenly Krishna says that you yourself should be doing karma. So it's a contradiction, right? And it's a seeming contradiction, and that is why a proper study of the scriptures is very essential, because if you just read the scriptures without a teacher in the background who is explaining to you the words, you will find that there are any amount of seeming contradictions. Why are these contradictions there? Because one thing which should be remembered is that our scriptures, either Vedanta or the Bhagavad Geeta or even the Prakarana Granthas, they address humanity in general. They are not addressed to only one set of people. And when you're addressing people in general, you of course know that different people are at different level of spiritual advancement or spiritual evolution. And therefore, scriptures are not addressing only one level of a student. They are addressing different levels of seekers. And therefore, obviously, the advice can never be uniform, right? You would not go to a doctor who prescribed only, aspirin for every patient, right? He has to look at the patient, diagnose the illness, and then treat him. And there was similarly the scripture looks at different people, looks at their level of spiritual evolution, and then gives advice. And how to extract the advice in keeping with the level of the student, that is the skill which one should develop when reading the Shastra. So this difference is technically called Adhikari Vedaha, difference in the levels of the Adhikaris, the people eligible for knowledge. For one person, a certain karma may be prescribed, certain sadhana may be prescribed, and that sadhana may be completely inappropriate for another person. And therefore we find that Shastram glorifies certain sadhanas at some places, and the same sadhanas are criticized in other places. Right? For example, if you go to Karma Kanda, the Veda Purva, the initial part of the Vedas, you will find that karma is glorified. A lot of praise of karma, and we keep saying you should do karma, you should do karma, you should do karma. Even in the Mundaka Upanishad, if you look at the Upanishad as a whole, you will find that in the initial part of the Upanishad, karma is glorified. And later on it says, na karmana na pajaya dhanena yagenaikam amritatva manashahu. That same Veda says that karma nor children can give you moksha. Only knowledge can give you moksha. Similarly, you look at Chandogya Upanishad, you will find that first 5 chapters are focusing on karma only. And suddenly in the last 3 chapters, karma is dropped and it focuses on jnana. And therefore, there are some people who have just read, I use the word read in brackets, and I know some of them, and they say that this Vedas are, a bunch of confused mutterings of some confused people. That is because they are not understood. You have to reconcile the contradictions. What is the reconciliation of the contradiction? The example is the example of a child in the womb. That child can be in the womb for 9 months only. For 9 months, the womb, mother's womb, is a blessing for the child. After the 9th month, the same womb throws the child out. The child, if it continues to remain in the womb, it is dangerous for the life of the child as well as the life of the mother. So what is a blessing at one stage? It becomes obstacle or poison at a later stage. And the same principle applicable to the child, the very fundamental stage of life, that same principle has to be applied in everything in life. There is an initial stage of growth. You have to enter, you have to grow, and then you have to mature and come out of that stage. So we have a fruit, for example, the banana. It requires the skin to ripen. And during the stage when the skin is required, that is when the banana is raw, it is not easy to peel off the skin. But when the banana is ripe, the peel comes off very easily. And therefore it is said, Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushti vardhanam urvara kamiva vandanat mrityor mokshiya ma amritat. Urvaru kamiva bandhanat. This pumpkin, the pumpkin doesn't fall off the plant. The creepers release their hold on the pumpkin. That is the beauty of it. The pumpkin doesn't need to do anything. When it is ripe, the hold of the creepers themselves are released. Pumpkin remains where it was. And that is why Ramana Maharishi says, we saw in Upadesha Saram, the first verse, Kriti Mahodadau Patana Karanam Phalama Shashvatam Gati Nirodhakam. That the great ocean of samsara, it is an obstacle for your spiritual growth. So karma is something which sucks you into itself. It's like catching the tail of the tiger. You think you have got the tiger's tail, but actually tiger is running behind you. The problem is that you can't run forever because the tiger is stronger than you. And therefore, every karma can become like the tiger's tail. So what we should do is, before the tiger begins to eat you up, before the karma begins to destroy you, you should use the karma wisely, use it for what it is meant, chitta shuddhi, and step out of it in time. You should know how to enter karma, how to get chitta shuddhi out of that entry into karma, and step out of karma in time for entering into Jnana Yoga, Vedanta Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. So all this is being conveyed here in this verse by Krishna. This is addressed to Arjuna, but it's addressed to Jnanis also, all advanced Vedantic students also. And he's saying that you should be very careful about how you give advice to people in general. Just because you are a Vedantic and you realize that karma is a bondage, you should not go around asking everybody to drop karma. When people are mature, then dropping karma is effortless, it is wonderful, and it will be very easily replaced by Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasanam. But take a person who is not ready for Jnana Yoga. And we saw earlier in this chapter, Karmendriyani Sanyamya ya asate manasa smaran indriyarthan mudhatma mithyachara savuchyate. The person who is not ready, his karmendriyas may be under control. But if his mind is constantly thinking about sense objects, mithyacharaha, it's a useless exercise. He's a vimudhatma. What is indriyarthan vimudhatma? So when an immature person drops karma, remember that immature person means his mind is not ready for the rigors of jnanam. He cannot spend time in Vedanta. And since he has dropped karma, he has neither karma nor jnanam. And then what will happen? He will become mithyachara, a person who will be thinking only about sense pleasures. And therefore Krishna says, please don't go and advise every neighbor of yours to drop karma. Because if they are not ready, what should you do? You have to ask them to continue puja, continue japa. All religious supports should be there for that person. And therefore he says, Karma sanginam buddhi vedam na janayet. Karma sangi is a person who is attached to karma and karma phala. Those who are attached to worldly activities and the results of worldly activities. So artha kama pradhana. People who are materialistically oriented. What should you do? Na buddhi vedam janayet. You should not shake their buddhi. Shankaracharya explains buddhi vedam. So buddhi vedam, Shankara says, in the form of certain thoughts. What are they? This sadhana I have to do. This phalam I have to get. These patterns of thinking. This is the buddhi vedam. And Shankara says, don't go and tell these people this is not correct. So this person, he is in triangular format. He is not ready for moksha. If a person is seriously interested in money, in name, in fame, the jnani should not go and criticize him or condemn him, right? Criticism and condemnation creates guilt complexes in these people. And everybody already has enough of complexes. We don't need to add more. Hence Veda says, do karma, earn money, but let it be dharmic earning, right? To enjoy yourself, but everything in accordance with dharma. And in the 7th chapter, Krishna says, we will see, dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamaha asmi bharatarshava. Say, hey Bharatarshava, he says, bhuteshu, among all beings, kamo asmi, I am the very desire itself. But he adds qualification, dharma aviruddha, I am the desire which is not against dharma. So, dharmic desires are again in the form of Krishna itself. And in chapter 2 we saw, yadate moha kalilam buddhir vyati tarishyati tada gante si nirvedam shotavyasya chutasya cha. I hope you remember. Yadate moha kalilam buddhir vyati tarishyati. When the buddhi vyati tarishyati crosses moha kalilam, the delusion of the impurity of delusion, then what happens? Tadagantasi nirvedam. Then you will be dispassionate towards what? Shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. What is heard and what is yet to be heard. So what is heard is what is already in the scriptures as karma and karma phalam, which you have read, which you have heard, and what is there in the scriptures but which you have not heard. So between the two, everything, all karma and karma phalam, tadagantesi nirvedam. You will be dispassionate. You will acquire dispassion. And that is why if the scripture is to be understood appropriately without contradictions, a teacher is necessary. And Krishna is addressing this teacher. He says this Gita teacher, this spiritual teacher should not under any circumstances criticize rituals, criticize pujas, criticize temple visits, criticize, tirtha yatras. All this should not be done. You should never encourage the dropping of karma because the people are not ready. If renunciation happens out of maturity, that is what is urvarukamiva bandhana, like the pumpkin released by the creeper. If it happens, then it is great. Otherwise, joshayet. If that person is not ready, joshayet. You should persuade, you should encourage. What? Do not give up your puja japa. Japa should be there, parayanam should be there, puja should be there. So this grahastha jnani should persuade all people to do their various karmas as prescribed by the Vedas. So Vidwan means this jnani. So Vidwan joshayet. The grahastha jnani should persuade other people. And how should he persuade? He should not just sit on a pedestal and give advice. The best advice, they say, is your own action. Action speaks louder than words. And therefore Krishna says, Samacharan joshayet. A grahastha jnani should set an example through his own karma. And how should he act? Yuktaha, with complete involvement, wholeheartedly. The jnani must persuade others to act by himself. doing all the actions that he wants them to do. Very important line for all of us, especially the Vedantics who are still new, and sometimes it's quite understandably so. The impact of these classes are so high that you immediately want everybody around you to change. And if anyone of you has been doing this, please remember this. Na buddhi vedam janayet. Do not disturb the minds of people who are not ready for the knowledge. Okay. Now we look at verse number 27. So please unmute yourself and we will chant. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasah ahamkara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. So I'm muting you again. A very, very important verse. Look at the words. Prakritehe kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasah ahankara vimhudatma karta aham iti manyate. The anvaya can be prakrite gunaihi karmani sarvasah kriyamanani. Prakrite gunaihi, prakritehe gunaihi karmani sarvasah kriyamanani. Full stop. Ahamkara vimudatma aham karta iti manyate. Okay. Now, prakritehe gunaihi, the gunas of prakriti. What are the gunas? The constituent principles. That very basic principles of which prakriti is constituted. So, constituent principles. Prakrite gunaihi kriyamanani karmani sarvasah. By these prakriti gunas, by the three gunas of prakriti, karmani sarvasah kriyamanani. All actions are done in all ways. Sarvasah. Every action, whatever way it is done by the prakriti of guna only. Very, very crucial statement. Prakrite kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvasah. We should, absorb it completely. Whatever actions are done, in whatever way it's done, remember always that it is the gunas which are doing the action. Second part is Vimuda Atma. Vimuda Atma, the confused person. Here the Atma is the mind, okay? It's not the Satchitananda. So Vimuda Atma, the confused person. Ahamkara, who is got this notion about I am the body. Ahamkara Vimuda Atma, the person who thinks he is the body, mind complex. Ahamkarta iti manyate, thinks that I am the doer of the actions. Two very beautiful statements. Actions are performed in all ways, in various ways, whichever ways they are performed. They are performed by prakriti gunai, prakrite gunaihi, by the gunas of the body, the gunas of prakriti. And ahankara vimudatma, deluded by I am notion, that confused person, iti manyate, thinks in this manner, aham karta, I am the doer. So these two verses, the 27th verse and the 28th verse, they are very, very important. And in these two slokas, in fact, there are many such slokas in the Gita, and I keep telling you whenever it is there, sometimes these slokas contain the entire essence of the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, you can say the entire essence of all the scriptures are sometimes contained in one or two slokas only. And these two are those types of slokas, the 27 and 28. Two of the most important slokas of this chapter. In fact, we can say they are the most important slokas of the Bhagavad Gita itself. Some of the most important. There are many, many important ones. These are also among those. two very important slokas. What is Krishna talking about? He is talking about the difference between a jnani performing karma and a ajnani performing karma in these two verses. Okay, so let me give you a brief gist before we get into the verses themselves, the words themselves. The gist is that every individual has got a lower nature and a higher nature. So you can call them the lower I and the higher I. We all know. What are the names we use for lower I and higher I?
Ahamkara is lower eye.
Yep.
And higher eye is Sakshi.
Higher I, Sakshi. Those are two of the names. Ahamkara is the lower I and the higher I is the Sakshi. See, the lower I is the Ahamkara, the Karta, Bhokta, which is limited. It travels from place to place and we call it Ahamkara. Okay. Remember, this Ahamkara here is a Vedantic usage of the term Ahamkara. Ahamkara has two usages. Ahamkara is normally translated in English as what?
Ego.
As the ego, right? The word ego, when you relate it to Ahamkara, it is from the Dharma Shastra perspective. It is used in the sense of misplaced pride. So he is an egoistic person. Ahankari, he is Ahankari, you say in Hindi. Ahankari hai wo. That person is an egoistic person. Ahankara, therefore, from the Dharma Shastra perspective, is a quality of misplaced pride. But from the Vedantic perspective, what is Ahankara?
Believing I
notion.
No,
The I know.
not at all.
Misplaced identification.
Vasana.
No. So this is what is most important to understand. From the Vedantic perspective, the Ahankara is what you called in Tattva reflected consciousness, RC. It is nothing to do with the Dharma Shastra Ahankara. So whenever we use the word Ahankara in Gita or in Vedanta or in Prakana, I will always tell you it is being used in the Dharma Shastra context or in the Vedantic context. If it is used in the Vedantic context, remember the Ahankara is simply the body-mind complex, the reflecting medium, which is reflecting OC, and therefore it becomes RC. Reflected consciousness is Ahankara. That Ahankara is the Karta Bhokta, the doer, the experiencer. It is a limited Ahankara because it is dependent upon the reflecting medium for existence. And therefore, when the reflecting medium travels from place to place, this Ahankara also travels. This is the lower I. From the point of view of Vedanta Shastram, Vedantic point of view, Ahankara has nothing to do with English term ego, which is a quality. Of course, Ahankara you also use in Sanskrit or Hindi as quality. That is from Dharma Shastra perspective. Here we are using it from the Vedanta perspective. It simply means body-mind complex enlivened by the OC. In other words, RM plus OC is equal to the RC. That is the Ahankara. It is what we call Jivatma. Okay, that must be very carefully remembered. That is the lower I. That is the Ahankara. And the higher I is what we call the Sakshi or the Atma. That is the nature of pure consciousness, Chaitanya Sarupam, which is known as Atma, which we called in Tattva OC, and for which Krishna often uses the term Purushaha. So that is word Purushaha is technical. In many places in the Gita and Vedanta, you will find the word Purushaha. It does not mean male. It does not mean a male human being. It means the Atma. The Atma is beyond sex. It is neither male nor female. And what is the nature of this Purusha Atma? We have seen. There are 5 aspects we have described. That Atma, that consciousness, that Purusha is not a part, not a property, and not a product of the body. It is an independent entity which, because it pervades the body, it lends consciousness and existence to the body. That Purusha, that consciousness is not bound by either the physical dimension of the body or the time dimension of the body. It extends beyond the physical body. It does not die when the body dies. It is not born when the body is born. It does not perish when the body perishes. And the last one is this surviving consciousness. When the body perishes, this Atma, this Purusha survives. And the surviving consciousness cannot be recognized when the body, the reflecting medium is gone. All this we analyzed very, very elaborately, where
Tattva.
no, you have to go back to chapter 2, verse number 12 to 25. All this was very elaborately analyzed in those verses 12. And if you have not revised, I would urge you to keep on revising those verses 12 to 25 as frequently as possible, and also Tattva. If you revise Tattva and these verses 12 to 25 of chapter 2, you are going to get a very strong foundation of Vedanta. Okay. So the second portion, the Atma, the Sakshi, the higher I, that is the real me, the real I. And remember, the aim of all spiritual sadhana is to discover this higher I, number 1, and next to claim it as my own self. Why is it worthwhile claiming this higher I? Because once I discover this higher I, asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. I have discovered what? Aham Brahma Asmi. I have discovered that I am immortal. That is the higher I. And the 2 portions are involved. Discovering what is the higher I and claiming that higher I as myself. What is the lower I? The Ahamkara is mainly the mind. And where is the mind located? In the body, because it is RM over there, which is enlivened by the OC. And therefore, this live mind is the lower I, which is made live by Atma, the higher I. The higher I is Sakshi Atma. Mind by itself is dead matter, it's Jada. Without the consciousness, the OC pervading the mind is dead. But with the OC pervading the mind, with the blessing of the OC, this live mind is known as Ahamkara Karta. So remember, these are all interchangeable terms. Ahamkara is RM plus OC. Mind plus OC is Ahamkara. Mind sometimes is also called Ahamkara because OC is taken for granted. And where is this mind located? It is located in the body. And therefore, this reflected consciousness. Another term is Chidabhasa, as if consciousness. Chit Abhasa, as if consciousness, is also another name for Ahamkara. All these you should remember. Mind, Sukshma Shariram, Ahamkara, RC, Chidabhasa, all this refers to one entity only. And this mind, this RC is operating how? It operates through this physical body of mine. And what does it operate for? For experiencing Sukham, pleasure, Dukham, pain. And most importantly, this mind is a finite entity. And it is this Ahamkara, this Chidabhasa, which when the body's prarabdha is over, the same Chidabhasa, the same Ahamkara, it drops this body and is reborn in another body. Okay. Now, knowing all this and being born as a human being, So Shankara says in Vivek Chudamani that it is very difficult to get a human birth. And once you get a human birth and a chance to come to Vedanta, you should consider it as a very great blessing. And once that is done, that requires prarabdha. Being born as a human being is prarabdha. Getting the chance to study Vedanta under a teacher is prarabdha. But assuming that my prarabdha has been good enough for that, then I have a choice to make. What is that choice? Should I continue to be this miserable Ahamkara? That is one choice. The other one is, should I claim my original glory, original status as Sakshi? Right? And that is why we have the prayer. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Dachyate. Vedanta says you should claim yourself as Sakshi. Because the Ajnani will remain in the lower I, in the Ahamkara all the time. The Ahamkara is Purnam or Apurnam. It is Apurnam. It is incomplete. And therefore the Ajnani who remains in this incomplete status is always dissatisfied. So a man who claims that he is the Ahamkara, he suffers samsara. Whereas the person who claims that he is a Sakshi, for him, the Ahamkara continues to be available for transactions with the world. But this man has claimed Atma, the Sakshi, as his real self. Ahamkara doesn't go away. Chidabhasa doesn't go away. RC doesn't go away. I claim I am the OC, but the RC continues to be available for me for transactions. My mind is there. My body is there. The body will go through its prarabdha karma. I will use the body-mind complex to accomplish many, many things. And there are many, many things which I may not be able to accomplish. So there will be ups in my life. There will be downs in my life. The ups and downs belong not to me. It belongs to the Ahamkara, the Chidabhasa, the RC, the lower I. And when I know that I am not the lower I, these ups and downs which belong to the Ahamkara will not disturb me, because I have discovered that I am not the Ahamkara. So in this 27th verse, Krishna is talking about a Ajnani, how a ignorant man works in this world, centered on Ahamkara. And the 28th verse talks about how a wise man, a Jnani, works in this world. But all the time the difference is, he is centered on the Atma. The difference between the Jnani's actions and the Ajnani's actions are being discussed in these two verses. So everybody is a mixture of Ahamkara and Atma. So again, we should remember, every jiva is a mixture of RM and OC and therefore RC. So technically we can say there are three things: RM, RC and OC. Because OC is pervading all the time. Without the pervasion of OC, RC cannot be there. And therefore Ahamkara is my body-mind complex, which appears to be sentient, which appears to be sentient because of the presence of OC. Remember again what I said, the term Ahamkara here is used in Vedantic sense, in philosophical sense, not in Dharma Shastra context. In Dharma Shastra context, Ahamkara means misplaced pride, unnecessary pride, which is the opposite of humility. In context of Vedanta, Ahamkara means the RC, the Chidabhasa, the body-mind complex, which is now sentient because of the sentiency borrowed from the OC. Right? If this is understood, Vedanta says, now this body-mind complex is alive and sentient, which is caused, that sentiency is caused by an invisible tattvam, invisible principle called Atma, consciousness principle. It has become a live entity. So it is called Chidabhasa. Abhasa means that appears to be. Chidabhasa means appears like it is conscious. So as if conscious. Not really conscious, but reflecting consciousness, and therefore RC. And in addition to the Ahamkara, there is another principle. What is that? The Atma, the blessing principle, the source from which the consciousness is borrowed. And Ahamkara is my lower I, the Sakshi Atma is my higher I. The Ahamkara is my incidental nature. The Sakshi is my intrinsic nature. So Ahamkara and Atma have got several differences. What are they? So Ahamkara is Alpaha. Alpaha means limited. Ahamkara is limited. Atma Anantaha, unlimited. So the first thing is Ahamkara is finite. Atma is infinite. Alpaha Anantaha. The second thing is Ahamkara is Anitya, temporary, subject to arrival and departure. Right? The Atma is Nityaha, never goes anywhere, is always present. That is why the Ahamkara, the local I, the finite I, is not available as Sushupti. Because it is reflection in the mind. The mind is resolved in Sushupti. Therefore, for you, for us, all the characteristics which I consider as myself, the individual, achievements, failures, physical problems, mental problems, family problems, all these are resolved the moment I enter Sushupti Avastha, because all these are belonging to Ahamkara, not to me. The third difference is Ahamkara is Savikara, subject to change. And Atma is Nirvikaraha, not subject to any modification. And that is why Ahamkara is sometimes happy, sometimes depressed, sometimes miserable. Sakshi is not subject to these fluctuations. The fourth is Ahamkara is Karta and Bhokta, doer and experiencer. Atma is Akarta, Abhokta. Ahamkara performs all the actions and experiences the fruits of all the actions. Atma, because of its presence, enables the Ahamkara to perform actions and to reap the fruits of the actions. But Atma itself does not participate either in the actions or in the fruits. All this we have already seen, where chapter 2, verse number 12 to 25. These are all just reminding myself that these things have been taught. And the fifth one is Ahamkara is always a samsari. Why? Because it keeps on doing actions. As long as actions are done, as long as karma is done, what will happen? Karma phalam, either punya karma phalam or papa karma phalam, will continue to be produced. Because when you do karma, karma phalam is the second side of the coin. So the punya karma phalam will produce sukham, happiness. The papa karma phalam will produce dukham, unhappiness. And since Ahamkara is perpetually doing karma, Ahamkara is perpetually experiencing punya papa phalam, Ahamkara is perpetually experiencing happiness and pain, and therefore Ahamkara is always a samsari. Since Atma is neither a karta nor a bhokta, Atma is never a samsari. Therefore, Ahamkara is ever a samsari, Atma is never a samsari. And every individual in this universe is a mixture of Atma and Ahamkara. Nobody is pure Ahamkara. Why? Why is nobody pure Ahamkara? We often say that person is pure Ahamkara. Why is nobody pure Ahamkara?
Because
Pure
pure
Ahamkara is Jada. It can't exist without sentiency of the OC.
Because RC cannot exist without the OC. Remember that OC pervades the RM. At the same time, you can say that OC is not different from RC in that respect, accepting that RC is temporary, because the moment RM goes away, RC goes away, but OC doesn't go away. So nobody can be pure RC because wherever there is a RC, OC is there. And that is why every mixture, every individual is a mixture of Atma and Ahamkara. And Shastra says there are two things in your life, Ahamkara and Sakshi. You decide. You can claim any one of this as yourself. It is your choice. Shastra never says you claim Sakshi. Shastra recommends you claim Sakshi, but it leaves the choice to you. And supposing I decide to claim Ahamkara as the real I, which many of us do. Most of us do that, especially those who are not exposed to Vedanta at all. And sometimes even when you are exposed to Vedanta, you are not assimilated. And therefore you claim yourself as that finite Ahamkara. You are free to claim Ahamkara as yourself. But you should be prepared for the consequences of that misplaced claim. Because once you are Ahamkara, you are a samsari. So Ahamkara and samsara are two sides of one coin. You cannot choose one without choosing the other. Ahamkara will have sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, agami karma. You are got inexhaustible sanchita karma. Therefore, moksha for Ahamkara is never possible. What can you do? You go to the other alternative. You claim yourself as the Sakshi. Right? Why? Because Ahamkara you cannot improve. You know, it's like that children's trick question, you know. You draw one line on the board and we say, without touching that line, you make it smaller. What is the answer?
Draw a bigger line.
Draw a bigger line. So you cannot touch the small line, which is the Ahamkara. You cannot improve it. And therefore you claim yourself as the bigger line. You claim yourself as Sakshi. That is the only way to solve the problem. Discovery of my higher self, which is eternally free and free of all problems. When I discover that I am Sakshi, remember that Ahamkara does not get free from any problems. The problems of Ahamkara will remain. But just like by drawing the bigger line, the smaller line has become insignificant. By discovering myself as Sakshi, the problems of the Ahamkara become insignificant. You discover a much higher level of Ananda, in much higher level of satisfaction, of happiness, compared to which all the physical suffering, it becomes insignificant. Whereas in the case of the Ajnani, since he has no concept of the Sakshi Atma, the higher self is not there. Therefore, all that remains for him is the lower self. And therefore, every suffering becomes a major issue. It becomes magnified. And this is the difference Krishna is talking about in the 27th verse. Look at the first word, prakritehe. Right? In this context, the word prakriti means the basic matter principle, nature, which we otherwise call maya. So prakriti is maya over here, right? The subtlest form of energy. The next word is the third word you go to, prakritehe gunaihi. The guna also has several meanings. In this particular context, guna means product. So prakritehe gunaihi. We can interpret it to say the three gunas of nature. But contextually, when you say karmani sarvashaha kriyamanani, you are saying that the three gunas of nature are responsible for all actions. And you might say, how can gunas do actions? And therefore, if you want to make sense, the guna here has to be taken as guna karyam, product of guna. That is, prakrite guna means prakrite karyam. So guna here is equivalent to product. Prakriti, remember, is guna here. What Krishna is meaning by the usage of the term guna is that Prakriti is not different from three gunas. And therefore, Prakriti gunahi has to be interpreted as the product of gunas, which is the product of matter, which is what? Which is the body, mind, sense complex. So prakritehe gunaihi has to be understood as the body, mind, sense complex, right? And therefore, the body, mind, sense complex, prakrite gunaihi, sarvasha karmani kriyamanani, do all actions in various ways. Remember that here, just to make the context clear, anything in creation, anything, let it be mountains, let it be rivers, let it be the planets, let it be the sun itself, anything in creation is ultimately only matter, composed of only matter, composed of only three gunas. And therefore, prakriti gunaihi, the product of matter, applies to everything in creation. Your laptop is the prakriti gunaihi, your book is a prakriti gunaihi, your mobile phone is a prakriti gunaihi. Anything that you can look around you, they are all prakriti gunaihi, all products of matter. A body-mind complex, as I said before, is what is being referred to you. It is the product of prakriti. And if you remember Tattva-bodha, you will know that from Maya alone, the 5 subtle elements, tanmatras, were born. From tanmatras, through a product of the process of panchikaranam, the gross elements are born. All that, but all that we remember here. 5 subtle elements are there. From the 5 subtle elements, mind is born, indriyanis are born. From the gross elements, body is created. From the individual sattva guna, jnanendriyas are created. From the total sattva guna, mind is created, antakaranam is created. And even though the body-mind complex is jada, it is inert, it is not sentient, both of them are now alive. Because of what? Because of the consciousness borrowed from the OC. Because RC is the consciousness borrowed from the OC. RC consists of all the products of matter, prakriti gunahi, body-mind complex, which is enlivened by the OC, and that composite entity, the body-mind complex, reflecting the OC, which is called the RC, is called the Ahamkara. And therefore here, prakriti gunaihi, final meaning is what? Ahamkara. Okay, all this explanation is just to understand why we are saying Ahamkara. The final meaning of prakriti gunaihi is Ahamkara, the body-mind complex with borrowed consciousness. And he says, karmani sarvasaha kriyamana. All the actions are performed by this Ahamkara alone. Sarvashaha, all kinds of actions, under any conditions whatsoever, Ahamkara alone can act. That is the meaning of sentence. Only Ahamkara can act. What is the corollary? Atma can never act. This is something which we should constantly remember. That's why it's a very important verse. Right? Just as the light in the room, because of which any activity in the room is possible, the light is there, pervading the room, activity is possible because of the light. The light itself does not perform any action. But without it, no action can be performed. Similarly is the case with the Atma. Atma does not itself perform any actions, but without it, Ahamkara can perform no actions. But what is the problem? Ahamkara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. This ignorant person, this karta bhokta ahankara, who thinks he is the RC, he is deluded, vimudatma. He is deluded by the attachment with the ahankara. He is lost in the ahankara. He is lost in what he can see. Lost to such an extent that he does not have time to examine the question of whether he is the ahankara or not. Right? So in Vedanta, we say that spiritual freedom is the birthright of every person, every human being. All you have to do is to claim it. But this ahankara, it makes you so lost in karma that you have no time to examine that question at all. And therefore, Krishna calls that person ahankara vimudatma. He's so deluded by the ahankara. It does not permit him time to ask the question, am I this miserable ahankara? Or am I something more than this? So we saw in Bhajagovindam, Kaspam koham kuta ayataha kame janani kome tataha. Who are you? Who am I? Kahatvam kah aham. Who are you? Who am I? Kuta ayataha. Where have we come from? Kame janani kome tataha. Who is my father? Who is my mother? All these basic questions we have no time for. Right? It's like watching a movie. Initially, before the movie starts, I see the truth, the tattvam, which is what? The screen itself. Once the movie starts, I lose focus of the white screen and I get absorbed in the characters of the movie. The characters basically are only lights and shadows, right? But I lose sight of the screen, and when I lose sight of the screen, the tragedy of the movie characters become my tragedy. And this is what he says here. Karta aham iti manyate. This Ajnani says that I am the Karta Ahamkara. I am the Bhokta Ahamkara. This is the Ajnani's way of doing actions. What about the Jnani? That is in the next verse, which we will do in the next class. So it's open for questions right now.
Om Acharya.
Yes,
I have
Ritu.
a question here. So when we are speaking of the Sagun form of Ishwar, like Krishna, Ram, or Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, so that essentially means that it is still in the Ahankar form only, because that is there is a medium over there that we are talking about. So the RC in the purest form. So how?
It is the medium which you have projected, right?
Mhm.
Nobody
But
has
we
ever
study
seen.
in,
Nobody has
but
ever
we-
seen Brahma or Vishnu or Mahesh.
but then we talk about it in the Tattva Bodha
You
as
talk
the
about it
Padatma
because
Bodha.
Saguna Ishvara is easier for a person to relate to, because you are Saguna yourself.
So essentially the kind of glorification we give them is essentially to be discarded now that we are Vedantins and we just focus on only two components,
I
OC and
would
RC.
take that with a lot of caution. Okay.
Mhm.
Na buddhi vedam janayet ajnana karma sangina. Just precisely what Krishna said.
Mhm.
Before you are ready, you please stick to your puja, stick to your parayanam.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you will neither be a karmi nor will you be a jnani. So when you are ready, you will find. When you are ready for this knowledge, you will find certain things happening. You will find that there is a reluctance, there is actually a discomfort in going and praying.
More than a discomfort, I have observed that there is no point because everything is the OC. Even the idol worship that we do, it is essentially Chaitanya Roop, which is present, which makes us, feel that, Ganesha or Krishna or whatsoever we are praying is actually a sentient form.
So let me give a caution over here. At this stage at which you feel it is pointless, which you feel the discomfort, it is an intermediary stage. It is
Right.
not the final stage. Okay, that stage will be there on the way to your spiritual progress. You will get to a stage where you feel all these temple worships, all these are useless. And why am I wasting my time? I would rather do Vedanta. But remember that once you have crossed the stage, once you have assimilated Vedanta, then it is Sarvam Brahma. Even
Yes.
the Saguna Brahman is Nirguna Brahman only.
Yes.
So until you reach there, please don't give up. You would feel, I'm telling you, you will feel the what you call discomfort in doing a prayer. You will feel that you are being a hypocrite in going to a temple. But don't give up that. You have to keep on in the practice until both get absorbed in you. Like when you go to Saguna Brahman, you are actually seeing Nirguna Brahman only. When that comes, then you will find discomfort goes away. You will be happy wherever you are. There will be no stress on your mind, whether you are chanting Bhagavad Gita, whether you're doing a homam, or whether you are doing Nididhyasana. All three, when they become the same to you, that is when there has been a good advancement in your spiritual progress.
And as far as a Jnani is concerned, So when we are speaking of, the glorification we give to the Sagun Brahman, or the highest form of RC, which is the purest sattvic form. So is that the Jnani? That means is beyond that particular understanding. So he will have all the three gunas working, the sattva, the rajas, and tamas at different periods of time in his life.
Yes, even Hiranyagarbha has got that. Hiranyagarbha is Lord Brahma, right? He has got
Yes.
three gunas. Why has he got three gunas? Because Hiranyagarbha is a reflection.
Yes, thank you.
That is why it is very important never to give up puja, never to give up parayanam. Second point is that if you give it up, you are setting an wrong role model for your people around you. Because those people who consider you as an advanced Vedantic, they will take the wrong takeaway from your actions or lack of them. That
But
is
like
why-
you mentioned, for a Jnani, a person who understands this, whether he does the rituals for the sake of others or out of his own, just want or need, or if he does not do, it really does not matter, because he knows that essentially everything remains the same.
But that's exactly Krishna's advice. Joshayet sarva karmani. Continue to do the rituals.
Do acts of austerity, sacrifice, and charity.
Everything you should do.
Right. Thank
You
you.
cannot drop a Vedic life because you are a Jnani. Yes, if you have no other thing to do, right? If you are a sannyasi living in the Himalayas, it's a different matter.
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Raviji.
Yes, Pandana.
So I came to it the other way around. I always had a big discomfort with puja and going to the temples and all, because as a child I used to think, God can't be in this stone. So now I don't mind. Now if my mother or someone wants to go, I go and I can pray, and I feel devotion for that idol too. So I don't have a discomfort with it, but I don't have a preference for it. So there is no need for me to start, right? Like to regularly go to the temple or something like that.
The only thing is, unless you are in the role of a role model, in which case you should do. If you are a teacher of yoga, you should do, because your students are looking at you. If you are not, if you don't have anything, then you have moved from God cannot be in this stone to God is also in that stone. Right? That's an improvement.
Thank you.
Okay, so with this, assuming there are no more questions. All right. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you, Acharya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.